It's time to talk about Harley Quinn Annual 2024, written and illustrated by Erika Henderson. This is likely the worst week, at least in the history of DC Comics since I've had the channel. And I think it's probably the worst week in the history of DC Comics, period, when it comes to quality. This is a writer and artist that you likely never wanted to see again after basically Marvel Comics kicked her to the curb.
Well, I guess since she got her stupid She-Ra show canceled, she went back to the thing that she acts like she had success in the first place. That's something that none of us wanted to see. Netflix, I feel like you need to fall on the sword here for us comic fans.
And truly the most depressing thing about this Harley Quinn Annual is it's actually better than the regular series, which is absolutely atrocious. This isn't good, but everything right now, Harley Quinn is so bad at DC Comics, this ranks amongst the better stuff. It's basically a comic book written for about, I would say, 12-year-old girls, perhaps, maybe a little bit younger than that, even though Harley Quinn is a serial killer. And it's just all that like cutesy-wootsy bullshit kind of stuff, but at least it's not completely terrible.
Your definition of terrible and mine apparently are very, very different. I don't see how there's anything good here. I don't even know if I can't figure out who this thing is written for. You said ostensibly for 12-year-old girls, but I don't think so. This feels like it's written for 28-year-old neurodivergent cat ladies, like the ones that tried to be a lesbian but then realized they couldn't, so they date themselves, but they can't even really stand themselves, so they just kind of are miserable. This feels like that. Like this is their fantasy of normalcy.
Let's get into all the greatness that goes on with Erika Henderson, starting out obviously with the art. She got her fame, I guess, in comic books, if you want to call it that, or infamy, I think on Tumblr. And for some reason, by the end of the comic book, the character stops looking like Harley Quinn and becomes Squirrel Girl.
I feel like Erika Henderson has like one default female face that she draws. She has to really, really, really concentrate in order to do like a different face. Maybe about halfway through, she felt like she was getting really rushed. She was probably approaching the deadline. As pages went on, the face just morphed back into Squirrel Girl. The only thing that was really missing were the giant buck teeth, but there was still some buck teeth.
It's Erika Henderson art, so it's not good to begin with. And then you're like, wait, is this supposed to be a Squirrel Girl comic or a Harley Quinn comic book? But really, the way that it's written and illustrated, it works for Squirrel Girl as well.
Because this is the exact same story she would have been writing in Squirrel Girl. This is the exact same story that she would have written in Lumberjanes. This is the exact same story she would have written for She-Ra if She-Ra existed in a place where, you know, fucking cruises worked. This is the same story she would have written regardless of who the character was.
It's very formulaic. It's very paint by numbers. It's very Erika Henderson. When we get into the story itself, it starts out with just some really lowbrow, not even fart and poop humor. It's just really stupid humor where it's a controversy about calzones while a reporter is investigating this heist that happened. And then you have the masterminds of the heist who are going, look, you know, if you don't do riddles at the crime scene or leave umbrellas or do this and that, you don't get caught. And Harley Quinn is upset. I guess there's some Bitcoin in there. And they say, yeah, actually, that's traceable. Do not touch the Bitcoin. We'll just take all the jewels and everything else we took from the heist. And we're all basically set for life. Of course, she steals the Bitcoin so she can go on a cruise because she wants to do what normal people do.
I don't exactly think that Erika Henderson entirely understands what cryptocurrency is, but okay. You know, after she gets her eyes opened by the other robbers in her little gang, that, hey, if you do things the normal way and not the flamboyant supervillain way, you could probably get away with it. She decides she would try to add some more normalcy by taking a cruise and getting the most expensive room and package for this, where she basically gets to go anywhere, she gets everything, and they treat her like royalty.
The way that the character is portrayed here, she comes off as very, I don't want to say naive, I think that's the wrong word. It's more like autistic, maybe stupid, very much like a 12-year-old in a fully formed adult's body or whatever, that she doesn't realize how cruises work and she doesn't realize how crowds work and she's not used to like ordering off a menu. Harleen Quinzel, you know, she did go to college. She was a successful student. She was warped by the Joker or whatever. This is the dumbest version of the character that you can find.
The fish out of water part is her being a criminal, not the other way around. Her trying to reconnect with some of the normalcy that she had, pre-Joker corruption would be a somewhat interesting story. But her acting like, oh my God, people. Yeah, that screams autistic, not supervillain and not uncomfortable. That's just plain autistic.
And then on the cruise ship, Zatanna has like a show or whatever. Harley Quinn discovers that. And she's like, hey, this person captured me once. I'm going to go bust into her green room or whatever. Zatanna does not recognize her. And then Harley Quinn realizes that the real Zatanna is actually enjoying the cruise. And this is like a second version that she's made, like a clone of herself. But Zatanna does promise that this one actually can't do crime or be sentient. She's just there to do the magic show while she tries to just like lay low or whatever. And you just get more real stupid jokes with enormous hats.
Being a superhero, she would absolutely shirk her responsibilities by making a magic clone of herself that she assures everyone can't go murder people. So that makes it perfectly okay. But sure, why the fuck not? Zatanna is just as terrible as everyone else and would take advantage of the system because she's just like Harley and Harley's just like us.
And Harley's like, well, I want to see your show. And she drags Zatanna with her because they're besties now, because it's two female characters running into each other in a DC or Marvel book. So they immediately become besties. I'm surprised they didn't make out. They go to watch the show. The lights go out. When they come back on, a man is stabbed in the back, and it appears that Zatanna's clone thingy actually murdered somebody. And then it turns into a detective story, which was kind of weird. She even puts on the Sherlock Holmes hat. And they discover that the dead body is actually Vandal Savage, and he's not dead, but he wants to get to the bottom of who actually tried to kill him. So he decides to do a team up with Harley Quinn, who is clearly retarded in this book, and Zatanna, who is not Zatanna, so they can try and figure out who actually would want to kill him.
It's just an excuse to have dopey dialogue, stupid hats, funny expressions, and a bunch of people that don't like each other all teaming up as besties. Harley even pulls out her homemade murder board that she somehow managed to make in 10 seconds with a bunch of scribble drawings of herself and Vandal Savage and murderer ?
There's a really weird moment here. So you mentioned the hat. She puts the hat like on a sun chair, where you would lay out to get a little bit of sun. It does something. And the way I understand it is Bronze Tiger jumped out of the hat.
I legitimately had no idea where in the hell Bronze Tiger showed up from here. Is this like a rabbit out of the hat joke? Because it has to do with Zatanna. So there's going to be magic. No, this is so fucking retarded. Story-wise, it just doesn't even make sense.
Well, Bronze Tiger is one of the best fighters in the entire DC universe, but they dispatch him quite easily. They're like, I thought he was tougher than that. And she's like, well, you can't see with the mascot head on.
What? Who does she think this person? I don't think she knows who any of these characters are. She's just a scribbler that can't make money elsewhere, so she does comics because she was popular on Tumblr 15 years ago.
Yeah, so that part was really, really out of nowhere. I still don't exactly know what happened there. And then at the end, we do discover that they weren't actually trying to kill Vandal Savage. They were actually trying to kill Harley Quinn the entire time. It was Guy Mandrake. And if he looks at you in the eye, you're going to poop and puke yourself because she took the cryptocurrency and stole it. And he was able to trace it back to her very easily, which everyone told her the entire time not to do. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but there were some of the worst editor notes I've ever seen in my life. From someone named Ariana and someone named Torturo who fancy themselves funny, but they're actually less funny than the jokes in the not funny comic book.
I mean, editors' notes have historically been kind of punny and dumb, over the top cutesy pie. But that was when they were being mostly done by dudes who would just throw in a dry joke. But again, we're back to women that aren't funny trying to act like they're funny. And all we get is bad jokes that aren't even for autistic 22-year-olds anymore. They're for the editor themselves. That's it.
And while doing this, I guess Harley Quinn goes in front of the camera. She shows the camera the knife, to make sure there's evidence. And then she stabs the clone Zatanna that was in the prison in the chest. knocking out, I guess, that spell because the real Zatanna couldn't stop it for reasons I'm not really sure of, allowing Zatanna to have her powers back, and then she does a puke diarrhea backwards spell and makes Guy Mandrake and all of his goons puke and poop themselves, and that's how they win.
I mean, they talk about male comic book writers and fans being juvenile. We got over these jokes by the time we were about 6 or 7. Especially like gross out humor, yeah, a little bit, but not this way. I don't know how to describe it. This is just not funny. You know, guys kind of understand where that line is between funny, excessive, lame, and there's a very, very tiny sweet spot that you have to hit. That's what we seem to see a lot in female writer comics, which is this weird gross out humor that misses the mark entirely. And then they call us juvenile.
At the end, the cruise line apologizes for falsely arresting them because they were released for some reason. Well, because Vandal Savage isn't dead, and I guess all they did was make Mandrake poop himself or whatever.
And they think that Zatanna is dead, so there's nobody to charge with a crime because no crime happened.
They didn't notice that Zatanna and Zatanna look exactly the same?
Apparently not.
And when she stabbed her in the chest, there likely wasn't anything there because it wasn't a real person. It was magic.
And then the thing just kind of vanished. Yeah, nothing. I got nothing. I got fucking nothing here. But at least at one point we got a Harley slipping on vomit in her flip-flop, landing on her butt in a giant pile of poop joke.
That one hit the hardest.
That was the big one. That was the one that they had been leading up to. Gotta say, they knocked it square out of nowhere. They didn't do anything. It was terrible.
This was not a very good comic book, but surprisingly, it is better than the regular in continuity Tini Howard Harley Quinn series, which is just absolutely terrible. But this is terrible. It's there's nothing really redeeming about it. It's not really a Harley Quinn comic book. It's an Erika Henderson comic book. It's got nothing to do with Zatanna. It's got nothing to do with Vandal Savage or Bronze Tiger or Guy Mandrake or any of the characters in there. It's just what Erika Henderson likes to do, which she's not very good at. She's not really a good artist. She's not a good writer. What do you think? Is she a worse writer or artist, though? I guess that's the big debate.
I think she's a worse artist. And the reason why is because if she was an actually talented artist, I could just ignore the writing. I can't ignore the writing or the art.
Yeah, so I guess the art's a bigger sit in this one. If I were to score this comic book, and I'm definitely not recommending it, I would give it like a 1.5 out of 5, maybe 2.5 or 3 out of 10. Just a really, really bad comic book all around.
I'm giving this a 0.25 out of 5. Everything about this was abysmal. The only reason that it's scored is because it exists.
And it's $6, which is absolutely ridiculous to be charging people anything written or illustrated, let alone written and illustrated by Erika Henderson. And that is the worst of the week. If you like the verbal stylings of Wes and Dok, we've got a lot more stuff going on right now. We've got the Dok Unfiltered podcast live on Think Critical Patreon right now. We'll have the Dok Q&A up the very next day. Actually, it'll be up live today when this goes up on YouTube. If you haven't checked out the Think Critical Patreon, the Dok is right here. There's a link in the video description. Well, Dok, I do apologize. It feels like cruel and unusual punishment. Gabe wanted me to have you review Superman House of Brainiac special number 1. But once I saw Erika Henderson was writing and illustrating this, I knew we had to do it. We had to bite the bullet on this.
I feel like anything less than this would be a disservice to the comic reader audience, and especially to the viewers of both your channel and the listeners on Patreon. Our job is to find the worst things. And we just needed to see how bad it gets, how bad the train wreck truly, truly is. That's our service to all of you wonderful viewers and listeners of this channel.
We salute you listening to this stuff and avoiding terrible comic books as Dok and I jump on grenades every single week for your viewing and listening pleasure.